What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Atticus Freeman, and this is my podcast entitled Thoughts of a Freeman. Okay, it's a podcast for the Black community in America, right? So, just a little bit about myself, or in this podcast, right? So, the podcast originally started last year in February. Shout out Black History Month. And it was on a bunch of different podcasts, right? But wasn't getting the reach that I really wanted, so I decided to go ahead and step out of my comfort zone and start doing videos, right? So that's here we are, right? So come on in. If you got questions, go ahead, put them in the comments. It's gonna be a nice ride, I think, right? I got a lot of success just off of the podcast, right? But like I said, just trying to increase the reach, right? So getting down and dirty, right? First of all, let me go out and say this because I am a huge fan of Lovecraft Country, right? So the name Atticus Freeman is not my real name. However, I did choose this name prior to Lovecraft Country coming out. So for those who are fans of Lovecraft Country on HBO, that's not where I got the name from, right? So anyway, right? So what's this podcast about? What's the show going to be about, right? So the purpose of this podcast is twofold, right? The first one is to challenge this country's current system, which is full of institutional racism and double standards, right? And second, right, to challenge the Black community to do better and to be better, right? Because Mama said, if you knew better, you do better, right? So, this is actually an avenue to for not only myself but others, that participate with the podcast and whatnot, for us to all do better and be better, right? Not only as a community, but just as a whole, as America as a whole, right? So now, here's a question, right? Is this podcast just for the Black community? Absolutely not, right? So this podcast is for anybody, right? And I do mean anybody, right? Who believes that the founding fathers of the United States of America were correct when they agreed that all men, and of course women, right, were created equal, right? So if you believe that in your heart, then this podcast is for you, right? And the show is not only going to focus on unifying the Black community, but unifying this great country that we call America, right? America. So you might be asking yourself, okay, what exactly does Atticus Freeman believe, right? When it's as America is concerned, right? So that's another great question, right? I believe that I'm an American, right? That just happens to be Black, right? And notice I didn't say African American, right? I said Black because in my opinion, I think there's a difference, right? But I said Black because my family has been in this country for at least 8 generations, right? So shout out to Ancestry.com for that information, right? 8 generations, okay? That's a long time, right? So if I'm not an American, who is, right? You have individuals, that of the majority, the Caucasian majority, right? And they've been here for 2, 3 generations, right? Their grandparents came over here as immigrants, whatever. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Because it's a land of the free, land of opportunity, right? So come on, let's go, right? But they're here, right? But they're white. So they're just automatically Americans. They're not German Americans. They're not, Polish Americans. They're not, whatever. They're just Americans, right? Because they're white, right? However, anybody who is a person of color, there's a hyphen, right? And I just don't believe in that, right? Why are we hyphenating different things like that, right? Now, if you want to hyphenate, you want to be a Native American, you consider yourself to be a Native American, and that's how you want to describe yourself or identify yourself, then, you know, more power to you, right? You know, if you are an Irish American, right, and that's how you want to be labeled, more power to you, okay? And that's what I'll call you, because if that's what you want to be, okay? However, I'm an American, right? And the reason why I feel this way, right, is because this country is my birthright, right? My personal birthright, right? Not just mine, but mine in particular, right? Because during the Civil War, this country was literally burnt down to the ground, right? And it was black hands that rebuilt this country, right? It was black hands and black minds that have made this country what it is today, right? You don't believe me? I got a couple of examples for you, right? So everybody's driving, okay? Whether you're driving, whether you're riding in a car, whatever, right? Something that we all come in contact with is the traffic light, right? I'm not a big fan of traffic lights, okay? Particularly when they're red, okay? However, traffic light invented by a black American, right? By the name of Garrett A. Morgan, right? He also invented the gas mask, which I've used once or twice. We see them all the time, right? Law enforcement, military, doomsday preppers, right? That wouldn't even be possible without the invention of Garrett A. Morgan, right? With the gas mask, right? Blood transfusion, right? Don't know if you've had one, if you've visited a blood bank, right? Well, shout out to Dr. Charles True, okay? Because he was instrumental in perfecting the techniques for blood transfusions and the blood bank, right? Also, right, our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., okay? Benjamin Banneker, right, was instrumental, right? And it has some credit, not all the credit, but some credit for the design of Washington, D.C., right, our nation's capital. And finally, just to name a few, right, but finally, George Washington Carver, right, who came up with a whole bunch of things, right? But one of the great things that he came up with was the idea and the practice of crop rotation, right? So now, you know, America's farmlands are producing, maybe not as much as they used to, right, for whatever reason. Okay, however, right, because it used to be you plant corn and that's all you had in your field was corn, right? But the corn eats up the soil, and after a couple of years, right, that soil's no good, right? Because the corn's taking all the nutrients. So George Washington Carver was like, hey, let's go ahead and rotate some of these crops, okay? So, hey, guess what? This year, you're going to do corn. Next year, you're going to do peanuts. The year after that, you'll do, I don't know, carrots or whatever, right? You know, agriculture's not really my thing. However, I do know that crop rotation is important for the soil and for crops in general, right? So shout out to George Washington Carver for that, right? All those things are were ideas and creations of black Americans, right? That have made this country what it is today, right? Which is why I say that as a black man, as a black American, right? This country is my birthright, right? Now, is it exclusively my birthright? No. But I do believe that it is the birthright of all black people, right? Those that consider themselves to be black or African American and whatnot, right? Because, you know, our forefathers built this country, right? We're not even talk about, not even touch on slavery, right? 400 years of slavery, right? Well, they weren't out here just, you know, twiddling their thumbs, right? They were building stuff, right? They were doing stuff. They were moving stuff. They were slaving, right? I guess that's what slaves do, right? Making America great, okay? So because of that, right? As those being, you know, my ancestors, your ancestors, whoever's ancestors, right? They built America, right? And so as descendants of them, right, I think that all their hard work, right, we should get the fruits of their labor, right? And so that's what I'm saying, right? The fruits of their labor belong to me, right? But not only just me, right? Other black people, right? But then also, you know what? Because white people, right? Asian people, right? Native Americans, absolutely Native Americans, right? Any and everybody, right, who considers themselves to be an American, right? That has a claim to be an American, right? Guess what? Okay? This country is your country, right? And because it is our country, right? I feel that it is, it's our job, it's our duty to make sure, that the country is being ran the way that we think that it should be ran, right? Because since this country is our birthright, right? Every single person, right? Every single Black American, white American, Asian American, right? Just Americans, right? We can go ahead and drop the hyphens, or you can keep the hyphens, whatever, right? It's imperative that we take an active interest in this country and the way that it's being ran. And if it's not going the way that we think it should go, right, we're responsible of being agents of change, right? So how does this podcast work, right? Another great question, right? So each show is going to tackle an issue, right? And so, like I said, I've had this podcast. This is going on my second year. So the first year, we tackled a lot of issues because 2020 had a lot of issues, right? Whether it was some that are just that we're actually going to revisit in later episodes. So I'm not going to give you any spoilers on that. But just the everything, right? All the injustice, with the police, Black Lives Matter, with Corona came out, and so there were several episodes about the coronavirus. So whenever you get a chance, you can go ahead and hit up the podcast. Podcast is called Thoughts of a Freeman. You can get it wherever you can find it wherever you get your podcast from. So Apple, Spotify, just to name a few, iHeartRadio. So wherever you find your podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast, go ahead and check me out there, right? But gonna tackle issues, right? And most of the issues, okay, not all of them, but most of the issues are going to be issues from the Black community, right? Things that are going on in the Black community, things that that we have, right, day to day, just on a national level, on an international level. But then also, moreover, things that that affect us as Americans, right? Because if it's one community, right? Because we're all one big community, right? So anything that affects the Black community is going to affect all the other ethnic communities, right? Anything that hits white America is going to hit Black America, right? And Asian America is right there, right? And then our Latino or Latinx, I think that's the correct term, is the, they're also going to be affected because we're all interconnected because America is a huge melting pot, as they say, right? So that's pretty much how the show works, right? But the show doesn't work without you, right? So if you got questions, you got questions, I got answers, right? If I don't have answers, then I'll tell you where to find, right? Or if I have a question, right, I might pose some questions, right? You got an answer, okay? Go ahead and hit me up. Let me know, right? Maybe we even have you on the show, right? I'm always looking for guests for the show. So that's pretty much it. It's pretty much, like I said, anybody who has something, right? This is just the first episode. I'm gonna try to do it every week. I work full time, trying to. I got some other endeavors that I'm working on, right? Not as Atticus, but as my other persona, right? Atticus gets to sit on and do podcasts and talk about stuff that pops into his head. However, the other part of me has to work, right? So I work because I owe and I have bills, right? But that's the American way, right? So anyway, those that have questions, comments, or if there's a topic that you'd like to hear me discuss or you would like to discuss, feel free to email me, right, at 1770af at Google, at Google, 1770af at gmail.com, right? That's 1770af at gmail.com. You can also find me on Thoughts for Freeman on Facebook. There's a page there, right? And then you can actually find my personal Facebook page as Atticus Freeman, or on Instagram at Atticus_Freeman Instagram. I'm not really on Instagram too much, but for the sake, Atticus is on Instagram. So, but so hit him up, hit me up. Atticus is me, I am him, right? So that's pretty much it. Really didn't talk about anything, but I just kind of wanted to get out there and introduce myself and kind of get everybody excited about this podcast. Like I said, I'm gonna try to do it once a week, as long as I have content, right? So some weeks might be there, some weeks might not, right? Especially with the inauguration of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris coming up on January 20th. I'm fairly sure that there's going to be a lot of content that comes from that, building up to that day and in the days to follow. So you don't want to miss that, right? So like, once again, man, just hit me up if you got something. This is a show, right? Before I get out though, okay, I would like to shout out Butterfly Effects, right? They did the shirt. Not sure if you can see it or not. Dr. Freeman, all right? It's a picture. This is supposed to be me, right? But go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and place their website in the comments below. So go ahead and check them out for any of your like custom shirts, pictures. I think I already said shirts, pictures, glasses, tumblers, things of that nature, right? Butterfly FX, and look for their comments or their information below. All right, so that's pretty much the show. I know it really wasn't a lot, but like I said, man, it's just the first episode. Also, if you just really like it, you can't wait till next week, go ahead and hit up the podcast, right? Wherever you get your podcast from. Okay, so that's it. That's pretty much it. I'm Atticus Freeman. This is Thoughts of a Freeman. And remember, right? Freedom is for those who fight for it. See y'all later.